There are moments from your past that you wish you could erase, a conversation you keep replaying, a person you still think about, a mistake you cannot forgive yourself for, a betrayal that changed the way you trust, a version of your life that you secretly wish you could return to. You may tell yourself that you are simply remembering, but sometimes you are not remembering the past. You are still living emotionally inside it. The strange thing about the past is that it can remain completely unchanged while continuing to change you. The event happened once, but your mind can replay it hundreds of times. You revisit the same questions, the same regrets, the same what ifs, hoping that somehow another answer will appear. But what if the real reason you cannot let go is not because you are weak? What if it is because some part of you is still waiting for something that happened to become different? You are waiting for the apology. You are waiting for the explanation. You are waiting to understand why they treated you that way. You are waiting to become the person you were before the pain. And until that happens, you believe you cannot move forward. But life does not always give you closure in the form you expect. Sometimes closure is a decision to stop asking yesterday to give you a different ending, a decision to stop punishing yourself for something you did before you knew what you know today, a decision to stop allowing an old chapter to control the behavior of the person you are becoming. Letting go does not mean forgetting. It does not mean pretending the pain did not matter. It means learning how to remember without being controlled by the memory. Your past may have shaped you, but it does not have to imprison you. And today, we are going to understand why the mind keeps returning to what is already over, why certain memories become difficult to release, and most importantly, how you can transform the past from a source of suffering into a source of wisdom. Because the goal is not to erase your history. The goal is to become so present, so aware, and so grounded that your history no longer controls your future. The past has already taken what it was going to take. Now it is time to take back what belongs to you: your attention, your peace, your energy, and your life. Sometimes you believe you are holding on to the past, but what you are really holding on to is the meaning you gave to it. An event happens once. A relationship ends once. Someone disappoints you once. You make a mistake once. But your mind can continue returning to that moment for years, because the event itself is no longer the only thing you are carrying. You are carrying the interpretation. Maybe someone rejected you and you interpreted it as, "I am not good enough." Maybe someone betrayed you and you concluded, "Nobody can be trusted." Maybe you failed at something important and you decided, "I am incapable." The experience was painful, but the belief created afterward can become even more powerful. This is why simply telling yourself to forget the past rarely works. Your mind does not release something just because you command it to. It needs to understand what it is still trying to protect, solve, or prove. Ask yourself honestly, what does this memory mean to me? Perhaps you are not missing the person. You are missing who you believed you were when that person was in your life. Perhaps you are not angry about the situation anymore. You are angry because you believe you should have known better. Perhaps you are not grieving the opportunity. You are grieving the version of yourself you imagined becoming if everything had worked out. Once you recognize this, something changes. You stop fighting the memory and start examining the belief attached to it. The past may have taught you something, but it does not automatically tell you the truth about yourself. One person's rejection does not define your value. One failure does not define your ability. One betrayal does not define every future relationship. One painful chapter does not define the entire book. You must learn to separate what happened from what you decided it meant. That is where emotional freedom begins. You cannot rewrite the event, but you can rewrite the conclusion you carry from it. Take the lesson, keep the wisdom. Release the identity that was built around the wound, because healing does not require you to deny your past. It requires you to stop allowing your past to decide who you are allowed to become. Your mind has a natural desire to complete what feels unfinished. When something painful happens and you do not receive the explanation, apology, justice, or closure you wanted, your mind may continue returning to the experience. It keeps asking questions because it believes that if it can understand what happened, it can finally feel safe again. This is why you may replay an old conversation while lying in bed. You remember exactly what they said. You remember their expression. You imagine what you should have said. You create different endings in your mind. You analyze every detail, searching for the moment when everything changed. But repetition is not the same as healing. Thinking about the past again and again does not necessarily bring you closer to peace. Sometimes it simply strengthens the mental pathway connected to the pain. Your mind may tell you, "Think about it one more time," maybe you will finally understand. But there is a point where understanding becomes rumination. You are no longer learning from the experience. You are simply reopening it. This is why awareness matters. The next time an old memory appears, instead of immediately following it, pause, observe the thought, notice the emotion, then ask yourself, is there something useful I need to learn from this, or am I simply repeating something I cannot change? That question creates distance between you and the memory. You begin to understand that a thought is not an instruction. A memory is not a command. Just because your mind brings something back does not mean you have to enter the same emotional state again. You can observe the memory without becoming the person who experienced it. You can say, yes, that happened. Yes, it hurt. But it is happening in my mind now, not in my life. That distinction is powerful. The past belongs to your history. Your attention belongs to the present. And every time you bring your attention back to what is happening now, you are teaching your mind that it does not need to live permanently inside an unfinished chapter. Closure does not always come from discovering one final answer. Sometimes closure comes from accepting that there may never be one. You may never know why someone changed. You may never receive the apology you deserved. You may never understand why life took a certain direction. But you can still decide that your peace will no longer depend on those answers. When you stop demanding closure from the past, you begin creating closure within yourself. And that is when the mind finally becomes free to move forward. You cannot change the past, but you can change your relationship with it. This is one of the most important distinctions you can make when you are trying to heal. Many people believe letting go means forgetting. They imagine that one day the memory will disappear, the pain will completely vanish, and they will finally reach a place where the past has no emotional presence at all. But that is not necessarily what healing looks like. Healing is not the removal of history. It is the removal of history's control over you. The event may remain in your memory. You may still remember what someone said, how something ended, or how deeply a particular experience affected you. But remembering something and being controlled by it are two different things. Think about a scar. The scar reminds you that something happened, but you do not need to reopen the wound every morning to prove that it was real. The same principle applies emotionally. You can acknowledge that someone hurt you without continuing to hurt yourself because of what they did. You can recognize that you made a mistake without repeatedly destroying your confidence over it. You can accept that an opportunity was lost without deciding that your best days are behind you. Your past should become information, not a command. It can teach you what to avoid, what to value, where your boundaries need to be, and what kind of person you want to become. But it should not dictate every decision you make today. Perhaps someone betrayed you, and now you assume everyone will betray you. Perhaps you failed once, and now you avoid trying because failure feels dangerous. Perhaps someone rejected you, and now you constantly seek validation. Notice what happened. One event occurred in the past, but you allowed its meaning to become a rule for your future. This is where awareness gives you freedom. When you notice yourself reacting from an old wound, pause. Ask yourself, is this happening now? Or am I responding to what happened before? That question can create distance between the past and the present. You are no longer the person who experienced that moment. You have learned, you have changed, you have survived. So respect what happened, take its lesson, and release its authority. You do not need to change the past. You only need to stop allowing the past to change you in ways you no longer choose. Sometimes, what you are struggling to release is not the person, the place, or the event. You are struggling to release the version of yourself that existed before everything changed. Before the betrayal, you trusted more easily. Before the failure, you believed more confidently in your abilities. Before the disappointment, you looked at life with fewer defenses. Then something happened, and suddenly, you were forced to see the world differently. You may think, I want my old self back, but you cannot return to the person you were before you learned certain lessons. And perhaps you are not supposed to. Growth often feels like loss because becoming wiser requires leaving certain versions of yourself behind. The person you were may have been innocent, open, ambitious, or deeply trusting. Those qualities were valuable, but they may have existed without the awareness you now possess. The mistake is believing that strength means becoming cold. It does not. You can become wiser without becoming bitter. You can become cautious without becoming fearful. You can establish boundaries without building walls around your heart. You can stop trusting blindly while still choosing to trust intelligently. This is where acceptance becomes important. Do not spend your life trying to recreate an old version of yourself. Instead, ask what qualities from that person are still worth carrying forward. Maybe you miss your confidence. Build it again, but this time through experience. Maybe you miss your openness. Keep it, but combine it with discernment. Maybe you miss your ability to love deeply. Do not destroy that ability simply because someone mishandled it. The goal is not to become who you were before the pain. The goal is to become someone who has passed through the pain without allowing it to define the limits of their future. Your scars do not have to become your identity. They can become evidence that you survived, learned, adapted, and continued. So stop asking, how do I become my old self again? Ask instead, who can I become now that I know what I know? That question changes everything because your future does not require the innocence of your past. It requires the wisdom you gained from it. You are not meant to go backward. You are meant to move forward with greater awareness, stronger boundaries, deeper self-respect, and a clearer understanding of who you are. The old version of you served its purpose. Now allow a stronger version to emerge.